In the report of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, it is stated that by 2035, the annual global average temperature may be higher by 1.5 degrees Celsius compared to the pre-industrial era, which could lead to irreversible consequences. However, there is a continent on Earth where this indicator will be twice as high. Africa will be primarily affected by climate changes. In order to prevent this, African countries have united and launched the largest project in Africa. More than 20 African countries have been trying to make this ambitious project a reality since 2007. It involves creating a green belt across the entire continent to the south of the Sahara Desert. With an average width of 17 kilometers, the length of the plantations should be about 8,000 kilometers. Thus, the total planned green area would be 136,000 square kilometers. This is comparable to the size of Greece. When completed, the Great Green Wall will become the largest human-made structure on our planet. But what are the chances of success, and what challenges have Africans faced in the 16 years since the start of the project? In this video, we will tell you about Africa's grand megaproject, the Great Green Wall. The Great Green Wall has become a symbol of hope for solving one of the greatest challenges of our time: desertification. Upon completion of its construction, the wall will stand as the largest living structure on the planet, an 8,000-kilometer natural wonder spanning the entire width of the continent. The uniquely ambitious geoengineering project has attracted more than $8 billion and is already being implemented in more than 20 African countries. This initiative unites African nations and international partners under the leadership of the African Union Commission and the Pan-African Agency of the Great Green Wall. The project's idea originated back in the 1970s, when President Thomas Sankara of Burkina Faso took up the challenge of combating desertification in his country. During his reign, more than 10 million trees were planted, which stopped the expansion of the Sahara sands to the south. At the same time, in Kenya, a non-governmental organization named Green Belt emerged, dedicated to reforestation efforts to restore destroyed forests. By the end of the 1970s, vast expanses of fertile land in the Sahel region at the southern edge of the Sahara Desert began to rapidly dry up. In just a few years, this once thriving and green region, which had supported the lives of millions for generations, turned arid and barren due to the combined impacts of climate change, population growth, and unsustainable land use practices. Years of soil depletion led to acute food and water shortages, armed conflicts over natural resources, widespread unemployment, and forced migration. In increasingly deteriorating conditions, community leaders and political figures began seeking a long-term solution. In the 1980s, the extraordinary idea of transforming the degrading landscapes of the region through the Great Green Wall began to gain momentum. It was intended to stretch across the entire width of Africa, from Senegal in the west to Djibouti in the east. In 2007, under the leadership of the African Union, the countries of the region finally endorsed the initiative, which became known as the Great Green Wall. Since then, another 10 countries have joined the initial 11 participating nations, and the project itself has truly become global, supported and funded by numerous international organizations, including the United Nations and the European Union. The Sahel region of Africa is one of the driest regions on the planet. Today, it is home to 135 million people. Moreover, the Sahel's population is rapidly growing. By the end of the century, it is projected to increase by over threefold, leading to a corresponding rise in demand for food and other essential natural resources for survival. Research indicates that 46% of African lands are already unsuitable for agriculture. This puts nearly 2/3 of the continent's population at risk. It is anticipated that in the next 2 decades, millions of people will migrate from the drying areas of Africa due to food shortages, lack of employment opportunities, and significant declines in their quality of life. Originally, the project was intended to be completed by 2030, but it is unlikely that these plans will come true. After 16 years, the project has been completed to about 4% according to some estimates, or 15% according to more optimistic assessments. These differences are due to significant challenges in monitoring and assessing the survival rate of seedlings in particular. For instance, a 2019 study by the World Agroforestry showed that in Ethiopia, only 30% of seedlings survived, while official Ethiopian statistics reported a figure of 79%. According to analysts and researchers from Climatecos, one of the main challenges encountered was tracking the project's progress due to the absence of proper monitoring and evaluation systems. According to data from 2021, Chad received the most funding within the project, but for some reason only 1.1 million seedlings were planted there. For comparison, in the same period, Senegal reported greening an area of 364 square kilometers using 12 million seedlings. However, there is no available statistic on how many of them survived and how many turned into grazing land for local herders. Reforestation efforts are also constrained by the climate situation, particularly prolonged drought in the region, notably pronounced in Ethiopia. It severely limits the amount of water available to sustain such initiatives. The slow pace of progress, lack of proper reporting, and the difficult global situation have led to a funding shortage. For example, the $14.32 billion that France pledged to invest in this project in 2021 were never disbursed. But not everything is so bad. In Senegal alone, over 18 million trees have been planted, and in Niger, thanks to the project, an additional 2.5 million people have been fed, and more than 330,000 jobs have been created. By 2030, the wall is expected to help restore 100 million hectares of drained land, sequester 250 million tons of carbon per year, and create 10 million jobs in rural areas. Moreover, the initiative directly contributes to achieving the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals by 2030. These are 17 goals set by global leaders aimed at eradicating poverty, promoting prosperity and well-being for all, and safeguarding the planet's climate. The African project directly impacts the achievement of 15 of these goals: combating poverty, hunger, diseases, gender and social inequality, ensuring quality education, fostering sustainable economic growth, developing infrastructure through responsible production and consumption, and using renewable energy sources. Critics of the project argue that the desert is a healthy natural ecosystem that shouldn't be perceived as a disease, and they point out that creating a barrier is counterproductive to the project's development goal. They emphasize that it only draws attention to the perimeter of the land where the wall will be constructed, ignoring the lands within. To strengthen food security and support local communities, it's more effective to focus on a broad area rather than a narrow boundary. Setting the project's goal is crucial. After all, an estimated 232 million people inhabit the total area where the Great Green Wall is planned to be built. Furthermore, armed conflicts often arise within the project's implementation area, and terrorist groups emerge. There's a struggle for depleting resources, undermining the timeline for completing the wall. Defending against terrorists is challenging, and the areas they destroy need to be restored. All of this increases the required funding and makes the planned project completion date seem increasingly unrealistic each year. Over the course of the project, the vision has managed to change slightly. The wall is no longer seen as a narrow strip of trees along the southern edge of the Sahara. The new strategy encompasses all the territories surrounding the wall, including Algeria and other North African countries. Many believe that the goal can only be achieved through tree planting. However, saplings are not always necessary. Some of the less arid lands can be treated using methods that rely on the land's self-regeneration and its so-called ecological memory. Floods and animals carry seeds to places where they can sprout, and the root systems of former trees generate new shoots. Sprouting roots are more viable as they are already established, unlike freshly planted saplings. They can quickly green the landscape, reducing the need for tree planting, provided that farmers protect them from fire and large herbivores. This method, known as natural regeneration, has shown promising results with low financial costs in the least drought-affected areas. However, managed natural regeneration by farmers will not work everywhere. Other methods are necessary, such as digging crescent-shaped trenches in the soil for improved irrigation or installing large-scale solar and wind power stations. With their help, clean energy can be generated to sustain soil fertility in arid regions. Central regions of Africa can hardly be called quiet and tranquil places. As a result, over 16 years since the project's inception, work on the Great Green Wall has yet to begin in some countries. In others, progress could be described as modest at best. Creating a forest belt around the Sahara is a highly ambitious endeavor, but even more challenging is altering the habits and way of life of the millions of people living in the Sahel, who have brought their land to a state close to desertification. African countries on their own are struggling with this project, and support from other countries is dwindling due to weak results and unclear reporting. In such circumstances, the construction of the Green Wall could stretch out almost endlessly, but we remain hopeful that this grand megaproject will still be realized despite all the problems and difficulties. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like it and subscribe to the Kara Show channel. See you later.